It was Tuesday, April 5th, 1870, when a group of 200 people from Ohio immigrated towards Abilene, Kansas, the land which was located northwest of Abilene, soon to be known as Buckeye Township. The colony was a group of people from New Pennsylvania, Ohio, which V.P. Wilson would eventually and successfully relocate to Kansas. After stopping in Lawrence, Kansas, he and Joseph Wilson boarded the newly finished Kansas Pacific Railway, headed to Abilene, Kansas, where they would examine land and decide upon a plot, located 8 miles north of Abilene. This area was near the county seat, which is near the railroad station, for mail and supplies, and just far enough north not to be affected by the cattlemen shenanigans. Although the number of people is not exact, V.P. Wilson guesses 200 people, including 15 families, followed. In the fall of 1870, the Buckeye School was built. It would be used to educate people of all ages. They would have writing and reading sessions which would become lighthearted and funny, as well as thought-provoking. In the winter of 1870, the Church of the Brethren group organized, and their services were held at the school. Church and school seem to have a variety of identities. It is somewhat remarkable that this place, so mobile, exists 140 years ago. In 1904, when the Farmers Mutual Telephone Company moved into the store until their own building could be built. The phone system was a party line through a switchboard. Each party had their own ring and rules to use. There was a trust in neighbors and no suspicion even when two sisters would start their conversation in English and switch to German. There were only 36 lines and the neighbors were considerate to each other. The cheese factory was built in 1899, occupying the southeast corner and put Buckeye in the map. In 1901, the general store was built for local dairy products. Jesse Perry kept his goods in his wagon and then moved them to the front of his home until the store was built in 1904. In fact, the post office was located in his store while Perry was the Buckeye postmaster, only lasting a short 4 years from 1900 to 1904. It became the local place for neighbors to meet. Buckeye started to boom in 1900 with a factory, store, and church. H.J. Morgan came and the blacksmith shop was built. It was more than just a shop. It offered hardware and tinware. The blacksmith shop was a place for young men to wrestle and box. The store had several owners and grew as a community needed. But the store was closed in 1959 when Whitney, the last owner, moved to Nebraska to be closer to his daughter. Electricity stretched to Buckeye around 1918, and the country seemed to boom during World War I. But as the war ended, so did the prosperity in the country as well as Buckeye. In 1920, the closing of the cheese factory. The factory could not keep running without the dairy products. The cheese factory was closed, converted into a home, and the building was moved 2 miles north. The economic situation in 1920 was grim, and by that year, unemployment had jumped from 4% to nearly 12%. The Depression had hit. Local residents had hoped for the railroad to go through Buckeye around 1910, but this was never accomplished. Although the closing of the cheese factory had a large impact on Buckeye, there were people still going to school, church, and working. Gas was piped into the area in 1940s. The rail that leads to Buckeye was asphalt in 1960, after the completion of I-70, just a year after the closing of the landmark Buckeye store. There was never a school close enough to Buckeye. The children were taken to Abilene, to the Dixon County Community High School on Monday through Friday, and then taken back to Buckeye for the weekends. In 1973, the Mutual Aid Association Insurance Company opened its doors at Jeep Road and 3100th Avenue for area residents. This is a fine example of how we return to the strength of the church. The northwest corner of Jeep and 3100th Avenue still had its only other active organization in town. Behind it was a cemetery with those who had lived and helped build the town of Buckeye, Kansas. It was a very warm Friday afternoon, November 9th, 2012. I am heading into just north of Abilene. My GPS tells me I was heading down Kansas Highway 18 and to cut diagonally to what was known the center of Buckeye community, at the intersection of Jeep Road and 3100th Avenue. By heading north out of Abilene, the blacktop was ending and there was a dirt road ahead of me. As that dirt road began, I realized I had just passed Buckeye, Kansas, in a blink of an eye. My GPS did not realize that the community and the rundown buildings was being my destination. There were no pile of buffalo or cattle bones to mark my path. For a town that had been originally founded in 1970 and was the last known subdivision of this small town was once known as Buckeye, is a cemetery. That was the story and the history of the small town north of Abilene, Kansas. I hope and pray for the prosperity of Buckeye, Kansas.